Now 9 o'clock, and I'd like to call the meeting to order this morning. First item is we'll be going quickly through a roll call, and I'd like to ask that you say present. Okay, first person is Mark Hoffman. Okay.
Present.
Thank you. Nick Jensen.
Here.
Robin Rain.
Here.
Jason Bahi. Okay, noted. Catherine Skinner. If I could ask,
Are you there?
mute, please?
Thank you.
Okay, do we have everyone muted now? Okay. Thank you, Catherine. I see your name, that you're present, but I'm not able to hear you.
It may take just a minute for her mic to show up, Carolyn,
Okay.
if you want to come back to her.
Yes, I'll come back. Patricia Pablo. Okay. For the town of Marana, I see that we have Keith Braun this morning.
Present.
Thank you. Jose Rodriguez.
Present.
Thank you. Beth Abramovitz.
Oh.
Beth, are you with us?
Can you hear us now?
I'm here.
Thank you. Okay.
Carolyn?
Yes?
Oh, this is Catherine. So you guys can hear us now? Our audio's working?
I can hear you now, Catherine.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you. So Catherine is also present. We do have a full quorum at this time. I'd also like to call the Tohono O'odham Nation, the San Javier District. Mark Pugh, are you with us this morning? Okay, thank you. Tucson Airport Authority. Mike, are you with us? Okay, noted. And the University of Arizona, Mark Novak, are you with us this morning?
Present.
Thank you for joining us. Okay. If I could, let's see, we do have a full quorum, and if I could just remind everyone to please mute when you're not speaking.
Scott Murphy with Tucson Airport Authority.
Oh, great. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for joining us this morning. Okay, with that, we do have a full quorum, and I thank you all for joining us this morning. Crystal, if we could please move on to item 2. In-kind form, I believe we're all pretty comfortable with this item. I would like to ask if there's anyone that is paid in federal dollars. Can you please state your name now?
That is Mark Hoffman. I'm paid with federal dollars.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. I would also like to note that I do see Patricia Pablo has joined us. Good morning, Patricia. Can you hear us okay? All right. Thank you. Crystal, if you could help me work with Patricia on her microphone, please.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll move on now to item 3 on the agenda. This is an overview of the process and timeline for the FY 22 to 26 TIP development. Jamie, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn, and good morning, everyone. During the last TIP subcommittee meeting, there were some questions about the TIP development process, and so we are attempting to answer those questions. We provided a memo in the packet that talks about the relationship between the TIP and the RMAP and different funding sources, as well as different steps in the TIP development process. I'd like to cover some of those important points with you today. We've got a graphic to show you, and then we're available to answer any questions. So let's click on this, take control. Okay, so some of the important points from the memo. The TIP development process isn't a quick process. It takes about 10 months. As such, different tip components such as separate draft project lists are available for review at different times during the process. So not all draft project lists will be ready for review as one unified list until March. A process that takes multiple steps of review is similar to previous tip development cycles. And it's probably important to note that nothing is final until the April-May timeframe. So our graphics department helped put together this timeline for us. As you can see, again, it's 10 months roughly for our process. What you see on the left that's shaded is, of course, in the past, and then you can see the star of where we are in October. So in August, we had our first TIP subcommittee meeting with the adoption of the revenue projections for TIP fiscal constraint. The following week, we distributed the memo from Carolyn that talks about the TIP development process and also any funding available. So it's also called the NOFA, or Notice of Funding Availability. And as you recall, it's limited for new programming to those FTA grant programs, 5307, 5339, and STBG Flex for transit. And then at the TPC meeting in August, we also provided an overview of the TIP development process. In September, thanks to almost all of you on this call, we were able to have individual meetings with our member agency representatives to review the current TIP project lists with an emphasis on RTA projects. And that's helped us, especially Jim and his team, working with the member agencies to develop the RTA draft project list that we reviewed for the first time at the October 6th meeting, and are reviewing again today. Next month, we anticipate that the transit working group will have completed their recommended draft transit project list, and that will lead into the TPC meeting in December, where we anticipate that both, hopefully, the RTA draft project list and the draft transit project list will be ready for review. In January, we anticipate that ADOT will be ready for TPC review of a draft project list, their projects. And then in March, we intend to bring to Management Committee and Regional Council draft project list that assembles all of the different project lists into one aggregate list. And then shortly thereafter, we will hold public open houses as we usually do in late March. And once again, we'll be asking for your assistance at those open houses. It's much appreciated. In April, we will bring the full TIP, not just the project list, but the full draft document to TPC with a request to recommend approval of the proposed TIP, and then kick off a 30-day public comment period as we usually do. In May, we will bring forth the draft proposed TIP to Management Committee with a request to recommend approval. And then finally, in late May, there will be a TIP public hearing and again, a request to approve by Regional Council the proposed FY22 through 26 TIP. So we hope that the memo and this brief presentation with this graphic help to answer some of the process questions. But if there are any additional questions, we're happy to take those right now. So thank you, Caroline. Thank you, members of the committee.
Hi, Jamie. This is Catherine with Pima County. I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is the goal of the RTA list that we're going to discuss soon, is the goal of that to make sure that we're programming all of the remaining RTA funds we anticipate getting over the next 5 years? Or is there another subset of RTA funding that we're not programming? And part of, for 22, we're only showing $11 million of RTA money being programmed. But I think we anticipate getting about 82 to 80.
Hey, Catherine, and this is Carolyn. We are really having a challenge being able to hear your voice. There's a lot of echo in the background. Are you able to come closer to the speaker or to the microphone, please?
I can attempt to.
Thank you.
The question is with the, is the goal of the RTA list that we're going to look at to program the remaining RTA funds? Because we're only showing $11 million worth of RTA programming for fiscal year 22, even though we anticipate getting about 83 million. So I'm wondering what the RTA list we're saying it's including, because it must be, it's just showing a subset of RTA funding. So what is that RTA funding list in your spreadsheet really showing?
Thank you for that question, Catherine. And I will probably defer that question to Mr. Dude. My understanding is that really the focus is on those large RTA roadway projects for this draft project list at this time. But Mr. DeGrood, do you want to maybe chime in if you may, if you will, please?
Sure. Ms. Skinner, what we're attempting to do with this roadway list is to basically demonstrate that the ballot amounts are fully funded. This is not about programming all of the RTA funds that will be available. So there will still be, that discussion is going to have policy implications, and that's something that we'll be developing with the RTA board. At this point, the sole purpose of this is to place the remaining ballot amount dollars in the appropriate locations and demonstrate that we're in compliance with the RTA plan in the TIP. So that's what we're trying to accomplish today. We know there are other things that need to be dealt with, but this is relative to the current commitments.
Okay, is there a timeline? Is there a timeline for doing that second part, the policy exercise, to determine where the rest of the money will go?
There is not a timeline.
This is Robin Rain. If I may make a comment on that, I wonder how quickly would we see any sort of framing of those policies for our policy makers to review in advance of making those decisions?
Well, if I may, I think if we could try to keep the focus today on this list, and as we have more information, we will bring it forward about these policy questions that really probably are for TMC Policy Subcommittee or the RTA Board to discuss. That's my take. Jim, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think today we're here really to focus on this RTA project list. And as we have more information, we will bring that forward.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, Jimmy. We'll be working through it, but I don't have specific dates.
This is Diana. Hear you, Jamie, trying to do that, but they are tied, so it's kind of hard to separate. And I think that's where we're kind of struggling on this side of the house with y'all, is that the TIP is tied to the RTA. So again, it's about the big picture and the timing. So can you go back and put up for me real quick, the schedule? By the way, thank you for that. That is awesome. I love stuff like this. I'm such a visual person, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. The graphics department did a nice job with that.
They did a great job. They did a great job. Just give me a minute to look a little bit more through it. But I think we just want to kind of understand how this is going to line up, because they do need to line up. And I think that's where we're just kind of struggling, is you can't do one without the other. It's like having the left hand constantly tied behind your back.
And I think we see your point, and I think it'd be nice if we had, all the information for you right now in October to make a perfectly informed decision. And unfortunately, we don't have all that information. It's a 10-month process with different steps. And I think one of the key points that we try to emphasize is that nothing is really final until the April-May timeframe. So as these policy discussions are taking place and we have more information, we have expanded lists or other lists, we will bring that forward for review. And you can see on that timeline, there will be multiple opportunities for TPC to review lists as well as the full TIP and make changes.
And Jamie, if I may just jump in, this is Carolyn Laurie. I did want to mention to the committee members that today our goal is to provide a kind of hit a second level of review so that we can move this, this list of projects up to the TPC for their review. Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions on this item or can we move on? Okay, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to item 4, continuation of review and discussion of the draft FY 22 to 26 RTA project list. And Jim and I are going to work together on this list and we're going to go through item by item. I'm going to share my screen now. Please let me know if you can see it.
Yes.
Okay, shall I zoom in a little bit more? How's that?
That is really much better. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, Jim, would you like to provide a brief update on the items that we requested during our last meeting?
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn, and members of the TIP subcommittee. What we have done is we've reached out to each of the jurisdictions that has projects or has project funding in the remaining RTA roadway element projects. When you look through the table that's been sent to you, anything that is in a green field is a highlighted field that represents information that we have gotten from the jurisdiction about local funding. If it is in a grayed out field, it is a field that we manipulated or changed during the last meeting. So that is a difference that was between the material that was sent out to you at the last meeting that was changed during the meeting. It was agreed to at the time. Where you see a field that is shown in blue, that is a subsequent recommendation by the RTA staff based upon information that we've subsequently received from the jurisdiction. So that's in essence kind of the color coding that you've seen here. And we did receive information from the county, the city of Tucson, and the town of Marana, varying degrees of certainty. So we've taken some liberties in terms of where we've shown some dollars, for instance. And Carolyn, is it all right if we go ahead and just start with the first project, Tangerine Road, and I can use that to illustrate how we took or the approach that we received.
Sure, Jim. Well, let's get started on that. I did want to just quickly mention that as requested, we've added the 21 tip year for you to see. And if there are any numbers here that we need to have a discussion on moving forward, a possible future amendment or rolling these items, let's have a side conversation so that our members are we're being respectful to everyone's time today. One last item is our goal is to be through this section by 10:40, which will allow a couple more moments of conversation towards the end. Okay, so the first item we'll be reviewing is tip number 86.06. This is RTA number 1A, Tangerine Road, I-10 to La Cañada Drive. Jim, would you like to take the lead?
With that particular project, in terms of the funding placement for regional funds and RTA funds, it's basically as it was reflected at the last meeting. What we did get was input from the town of Marana on their local share commitment or local funding commitment. We did get an email from Dan Grossman that identified an amount of funding that had been spent to date. Let me pull it up here. He had indicated that $3.646 million of impact fee funding or local funding has already been expended on this project. there was a $21.39 million commitment made from the town of Marana for local funding. That leaves $17,744,000. We did not get direction as to what year it would be available or where it was to be placed. So in a situation like that, where we've got some uncertainty as to the funding available, we have, for the purposes of this plan, placed it in the last year. So in this particular year, or in this particular project, we placed it in fiscal year 26. Is that something that is acceptable to the town of Marana?
Jim, this is Keith. Yeah, we're going to show that money as farther out because we're cash flowing that money and it won't all be there in those earlier years. Some of that money won't come in until FY 2026. I will also say that we're still evaluating some of the billings on that project, and that 17 or that 3.8 million that you got, that number could increase. Therefore, that 17 million number could come down still.
Okay, well, and that's, we understand and respect that. However, for the purpose of this planning document and in the draft form that it is now, this is what we're proposing. And we'd like either your concurrence or your recommendation on how you'd like to have it split up for, again, this step in the process.
So we're in agreement that the money would be showing up in 2026. We'll fine tune those numbers and make sure we have a number that we agree with.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Okay, moving on to the next item. Robin, if I could ask you to provide a response on this. Thank you. This is tip ID 56.06, RTA number 5. This is Silver Bell Road, grant to Ina Road. Okay, Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. We did get a response from the city of Tucson and from Pima County.
Oh, good.
For the city of Tucson, they had indicated that funding would be made available in fiscal years 23 and 24. Those are the two green fields shown kind of in those years. And Pima County Department of Transportation indicated that they are collecting funds in the benefit area. They did indicate that there's some uncertainty as to whether or not the cash will be present at the time that that it's desired. So for that reason, we have placed it in fiscal 2026. Catherine, is that consistent with your wishes?
Yes, I agree. We are collecting this in our fee program that'll start collections in January of 2021. So we don't have a history to work with to see how fast we'll be earning monies in that area.
Okay. Robin, does that work for you as well? Have we accurately reflected your wishes for the funding?
Yeah, that's where this is Robin. That is where it currently stands. And we would like, of course, to reserve the right to move it if at some point the project schedule changes or any other sorts of cash flow things change. But that is currently as we see it in the future.
I appreciate that, Robin, and we certainly understand that that this is a dynamic document. It will always be a dynamic document. So, but for the purposes of this planning, this level of planning, on this point in the planning process, this is where we'd like to reflect it, and we'd like your concurrence with that.
Yes, that is as we currently show it in our budget projections.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Robin and Catherine. We move on to tip ID 10.18, RTA project 8B as in boy. This is Sunset I-10 to River, and the sponsor on this project is Pima County.
Okay, what I have done with this is I have reflected what Pima County had identified as being its years of funding, basically showing funding in development impact fees in fiscal 22 and in fiscal 23. The city of Tucson has indicated that they would have $2.5 million available in fiscal year 24. Those are the only changes that were made from the last meeting. And we'd like both the city and county's concurrence on this.
This is Catherine from the county. I agree with the years we're showing the impact fees. This is one project that clearly is underfunded to complete the scope of the RTA project, and that is why it's so important that we understand how much additional RTA funding may be available for programming in the next 5 years, and additional 12-6 funding that may be available in the next 5 years, and we really push on creating those policy discussions that need to happen. So we're hoping, as everybody knows, to get this with the ADOT project.
Okay.
So funding's needed in the first couple years to do that.
Thank you, Catherine. We definitely note that this is an important project for your jurisdiction, and we'll continue those conversations.
Catherine, your motives are crystal clear.
Thank you. I do see that there's some city dollars here, Jim.
Yes, we concur with the placement of those city dollars, but to reflect what Catherine said, both on the previous project and on this Sunset project, there are shortages to complete the project of Silver Bell all the way to Ina, and obviously Sunset is short funding even with these bits. But the location of that city impact fee funding is where we currently projected in our budget.
Okay. Thank you, Robin and Catherine. Moving on to the next item.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Did you have another comment, Jim?
No, I was just jumping the gun.
Okay, thank you. The next tip ID is 30.16, RTA 9B as in boy. This is I-10 to Ina Road to Ruthroff, and the sponsor of this project is ADOT. Mark, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Okay, we've made no changes to this this particular project at this time.
Okay. Mark, do you concur with the numbers as shown?
Yes, as it stands right now, the State Transportation Board is we expect them to approve the 21 to 25 5-year construction program on the 27th, and then at that time, once that is approved and we will have the updated budget numbers, then there will be some rebalancing that'll need to take place. But as of right now, this is good.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Moving on to tip ID 82.06. This is RTA 13, First Avenue to Orange Grove Road to Ina Road. And this is the sponsor is Pima County. Catherine?
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Jim.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what we have done is we have reflected $700,000 of Pima County development impact fees in the final year of the 5-year tip. Other than that, the funding is as it was presented at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Catherine. The 700,000 of impact fees that's shown in 2026 for this project, we'll actually be starting, we'll probably fund the design of this project with that money. We have it available now. So it probably would be more appropriate to put that in fiscal year 23.
Okay.
Okay.
Noted, thank you. Next item on our list is tip number 81.06, First Avenue Grant to River. This is RT number 14, and the sponsor of this project is the City of Tucson. Jim?
Okay. The only changes that we have made to this have been the reflection of the $2.8 million of City of Tucson impact fees that is in or was shown in fiscal year 23. Other than that, it is as we had proposed it at the last meeting.
Okay.
This is Robin. I do see it reflected in our projection, in our budget projection for that amount in fiscal 23. So that's accurate.
Okay. Thank you, Robin.
This one is another though, that if we were to go to the full scope, widen to 6 lanes, it would be serious, the budget would be seriously low based upon this tip.
Okay. Noted.
Understood.
Thank you.
This is Catherine. I'm curious, with $33 million in a single year, is that feasible at a spend rate for a construction project to spend that much in a single year?
It would certainly be tricky. But it does have a big bridge, so.
Okay.
Okay, so our goal currently is to make sure these years are in fiscal constraint. In the future, if there's some shifting after, should this TIP program be approved, then we could move, and funding's available, we could move those numbers forward or back a little bit. Okay, thank you.
This is Robin. I think one of the things that will be more clear as we go through design is what the spending rates would actually be based upon what the construction schedule would ultimately be. And we are only just now nearing the end of the feasibility study. So we don't have that data yet.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to TIP ID 84.06, Grant Road, our underpass reconstruction. This is TIP or RTA number 15, and again, the sponsor is the City of Tucson.
Yeah, thank you. And could you scroll back up again? I think we just
Got it.
Shifted down too far. Okay. On that particular project, these are some changes that we're recommending. I know that the City of Tucson is interested in accelerating it from what we had shown previously. One of the things that we understand is that this is a project that nobody's really excited about using SDBG funds on, but it is funding that's available, and the SDBG funding, as it's reflected in this recommendation, is more timely to the city's interests in when it wishes to build it, and it equals or exceeds the amount of money that the city has estimated in broad terms the project to cost. So with that, this is what we're recommending in terms of where the funding gets shifted in the timing of the project. Again, trying to be sensitive to the city's desire to accelerate it. I believe the bulk of the funding is about 1.5 to 2 years advanced from what it had previously been. And what we have done is we have shown these funds exchanged time-wise with the funding that is shown on the Barraza Aviation Highway project. So that was the project that shifted back in exchange for accelerating SDBG funds on this project. We are still SDBG. We have fully funded to the amount of money available.
Okay, thank you for that background information.
Yeah, and I guess this is something that we would need Robin and the city to react to or hopefully endorse.
It seems like it will be enough to complete the project, even if the project is federal. We had noted last time that it would have an increased cost, but upon exploration, it seems as though it could be built for these amounts, and 23 seems early enough to start. I would just say that if we need to, for instance, acquire right-of-way, we would not want to use STBG funding for that. We never use federal funding for right-of-way acquisition. So if the intent in 23 is for right-of-way acquisition, that would need to be switched for a different funding source.
Okay.
If you have
A lot of it, but sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you can identify what that amount is, that would be that would be helpful to us. We are showing an overmatch in the first year and of federal funding use. And if we need to shift some funds to right size the right-of-way acquisition amounts, let us know. I think we have the flexibility to do that.
Okay. As we move forward and understand better what those numbers are, we'll certainly share them.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. And moving on that one, we could add the phase as right of way also to clarify that, if you would feel comfortable. Instead of design, we don't have to say yes or no today, but it is an option moving forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Design is not likely to cost that much, as that's why I went to the possibility of those right-of-way acquisition. And I'm not certain at this point whether there would be any utility relocations. That can sometimes get a little tricky when you're trying to do utility relocations with federal funding.
Okay, thank you. Okay, otherwise, do we have a concurrence from you on this one, Robin?
That seems generally acceptable. Diana, does that seem reasonable to you?
Yeah, it does. And Carolyn, I will want to go back and show the right of way. I think that'll be important. So we can talk about that later, but yeah, I do want to move in that direction.
Okay. Great, thank you both. Jim, anything else, or can we move on to?
No, I think, we can move, definitely.
Okay. Great. The next item is 81.04. RTA 16A is an atom, and this is downtown links, Broadway to I-10. Again, the sponsor is the City of Tucson. Jim?
Yeah, we made really no changes to this. We understand that this is the priority project of the City of Tucson. We reached out to try to get greater clarity on some of the local funding. We know that there is a desire to bring in some regional flood control district funding, but the timing and quantity of that has not yet been fully resolved. So for that reason, we have only shown a line item for that, but put no funding to it. We know this is something that we're going to continue to work on, and this is something that can be handled as an administrative amendment to the existing program once it's known and once these outside arrangements have been struck with the other jurisdictions.
So Jim, Diana here. We did take this to our council. They gave us permission to move forward with some things, some changes. So we're working on that to take back to them one more time. And then it is our hope that, ouch, sorry, the puppy's playing. It is our hope that we will actually be doing an IGA come January with them. And the dollar amount is for actually $6 million. But they will take over the responsibility of a project we were supposed to do, which would be $2 million would be coming from HERF dollars and $6 million would be coming from the floodplain, is how it would work out, just to let you know.
That's great. And again, that can be reflected in an administrative tip amendment at the time those occurs.
So just so you know what the game plan is. So we're hoping that we'll have that all done and finalized by January.
Excellent.
Great news. Thank you for sharing that with us, Diana.
Yeah, no problem. It's just, I didn't have it until last council meeting, which put all the wheels in motion.
Great news. Thank you. Do we have concurrence with the numbers as we see them now, knowing that we're going to come back shortly with an amendment?
And understanding that there's other conversations policy-wise that need to take place that would potentially expand the amount of RTA funding, but that has to be done. There are policy questions that need to be resolved with that.
Okay.
Right. This is Robin. The one thing that we do have to still clarify is that in order to complete the project, there needs to be more regional funding associated with the project, in addition to those Pima County flood control dollars.
Okay. Thank you.
That we've committed.
Okay. Noted. And with that, do you as concurrence on this item?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to tip ID 55.06, RTA 18, Grant Road, Oracle Road to Swan, and the sponsor is the City of Tucson. Jim?
Okay, only change that has been made to this is we have reflected $1,088,000 of City of Tucson impact fees in fiscal 2023. Other than that, it is as we presented it at the last meeting.
Okay.
And this is Robin. I concur that that location of that particular impact fee amount is identical to what we are projecting in our budget. So that is accurate. This is another project that in order to get the entire stretch done, we'll need significantly more funding.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. Noted. We have a concurrence from you on this for now?
With the caveats.
Yes.
You have my concurrence, yes.
Okay.
So I have a question. With the how are we going to capture the caveats? Because the county listed some projects that is underfunded. We're listing projects underfunded. How is that going to be caught? Because we're being asked to approve a tip based on these dollars, but yet we're saying these dollars are not enough for the project. So how do we capture that?
So we're capturing notes as we go through the list, and those items will be brought back through a discussion with Jim.
You know, if it is the committee's desire to approve this today, it could be incorporated into the motion that it's approved with the understanding that there are additional funding needs that will go beyond what is in the ballot. However, this reflects a correct or a reasonable approach to the timing of the remaining RTA projects, something along that line.
Yeah, and just a quick reminder, this project list will be shown to you again through the TPC, and we'll be working on these numbers through, as Jamie mentioned, through the end of April next year.
Okay. No, thank you very much. And thank
Yes.
you, Jim, for how to make the motion. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm not supposed to be making motions, by the way.
No.
No, not you, me. No, not you, me. We'll make the motion. I just thank you for giving me the idea of how to frame it.
Okay. Okay.
Or someone else who may make the motion how to frame it.
Thank you for that clarification, Diana. Okay, let's move on to tip number 131. RTA 19A, 22nd Street to I-10 Tucson Boulevard. And Jim, would you like to discuss this one?
Okay, this is a project that we talked about at the last meeting. We made modifications during the last meeting. Those modifications are reflected in the gray fields, basically shifting some monies around in HERF 12-6 in fiscal 25 and 26, and adjusting the amount of money for construction in fiscal 23. We did inquire both the city and the county about the availability of City of Tucson impact fee funds and Pima County bond funds. There are bond funds that are being made available for this project. The bond funds are now reflected in green in fiscal 22 and fiscal 23. The reason that I highlighted the fiscal 21 amount is because currently we're showing those bonds in the current tip. Those funds are not expected to be available until 22 and 23. So we wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we were not going to roll that money over. This is, we're not going to, that's not double the money. That is money that at the end of the current tip, unless there's a tip amendment to change it in the meantime, which we don't see a need to do at this point, you know, we would, contrary to prior practice, not roll that money over because it is already reflected in the new tip that we're developing.
Okay. So the red there is just to kind of just clarify that that number is there, but we're going to be okay.
Can't count it twice. Yeah.
So This is Diana. So Robin, help me out here. We have the bridge ready to go. We're going to be putting that out to bid. We're looking to move into construction, and the first dollars we're going to spend are the Pima County bonds. Jim, just to let you know, we're going to try to have those bond dollars spent before the end of this fiscal year. So we are looking to spend them in 21 because the county has asked us to.
So thank you for pointing that out to us. And if that is how we proceed, just continue to keep me in the loop, and we can make sure that they're shown in the proper fiscal year.
Yeah. If I may, I hate to muddy the waters further, but I just wanted to make sure that Catherine concurs with that, because Catherine did send us this cash flow and said that this would be when the funds would be available. So I just want to make sure that there's no I don't want to have differing expectations come out of this meeting. This is how it was sent to us by Skinner in terms of the years of availability of those funds.
This is Catherine. I don't believe we have an IGA in place yet, so obviously we can't start reimbursing anything until we update that IGA. We have about $4.5 million we could spend just 21. So I mean, we could spend some of it. We don't have capacity in our actual budget though, our internal budget, because we didn't anticipate this expense this fiscal year. So we have some flexibility in the bond funding. Definitely we need it all spent out before the end of fiscal year 23. That's the deadline for spending bond dollars.
Okay.
We can work with the city and the RTA to figure out how we time this, similar to what we did on Houghton.
So Catherine, I received a letter from you guys, I want to say probably it's been about a year, requesting that the 1997 bonds be spent by the end of 2021. So that's why we're expediting it. So if you could, and we can have a conversation on the side and then round back with RTA, if we could get something in writing about the expending of those dollars, that would be great for me. But I was putting an emphasis on this because I did receive a letter from y'all saying have them spent by the end of fiscal year 21.
Yeah, let's have a discussion offline.
Okay.
Just has to do with when we do bond sales and that, but we can sort
And for us to kind of close up the end of the TIP discussion here, if this is going to be articulated in an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the county on the use of those bond funds, we can make an administrative TIP amendment that reflects that agreement once that occurs. So what I would recommend is that we move forward with it as it is presented, understanding that an IGA will necessarily fall and that will be reflected in administratively. It will be reflected in an administrative TIP amendment.
Okay, Jim, thank you for clarifying that for us.
I'm sorry, I have a quick question. Robin, I thought we did already have an IGA with them in reference to the 1997 bond dollars.
Not for this project, we do not. We have one for the Houghton project that just got signed.
Okay, all right, thank you, I'm sorry, my bad. All right, Catherine, we'll reach out to you and have a side conversation because I did get the letter to have the dollars spent. So I just we can come up with what we're gonna do, go ahead and formalize, I guess, an IGA, and that would make me feel comfortable because right now I'm working against that letter that I received. It actually came through Carmine, so I really want to make sure I clean that up.
Yeah, no, understandable.
Perfect.
One last question on this project. I see there's additional construction dollars in fiscal year 26 and 25. So is construction happening like in 21, 22, 23? I guess I just don't really understand how that works with the gap in construction.
So there's two phases to the project. What we're moving forward with is the bridge, and then there's the project that will go actually from like Keno Parkway to I-10. So we're moving forward the bridge right now, and then we will look at doing design and moving the next phase, which will be from Keno to I-10. So that's why you see it the way it's spread out.
Okay, so this would be a project where probably the current phase is funded, but there's not enough funding to build
Yes,
the
ma'am.
entire park. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so for now, do we have concurrence on 131.00 with the caveat that there's some additional IGA discussions happening and that you'll keep us in the loop on when those are completed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a real quick question for Catherine. Catherine, I believe for Sunset, the tip number is 82.06, is that right?
We have had two different, for Sunset, we've had two tip ID numbers.
Okay, can we circle back on that a little later?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on our list is 87.06 Barraza Aviation Parkway Extension. This is RTA number 20, and the sponsor of this segment is ADOT.
Okay. On this particular project, this is the project that we swapped funds with to accelerate the UPRR Grant Road crossing. So we placed the funding block in the remaining two, or in the final 2 years of the RTA plan, understanding that this is a project that has not yet commenced.
Okay. Mark, do you have any comments for us?
Other than this falls into just like the other ADOT projects, sponsored projects in the program, is based on the construction 5-year construction program being approved and the rebalancing that'll have to take place. So as of now, this is good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on our list is 60.06 RTA 23, Valencia Road, I-10 to Alvernon. Jim?
Actually, I think we skipped one, the Irvington project, but I think I can take both the Irvington and the Valencia Road projects together by saying that no changes have been made to it as a result of subsequent discussions. These are as they were presented last meeting.
Okay, Jim, thank you for that clarification and catching that. And Mark, I assume that you're comfortable with that as well?
Yes, same applies to this Irvington project as well.
Okay, thank you. Jim, can we move to 60.06?
Sure.
This is the Valencia Road, I-19 to Alvernon, and the sponsor is the City of Tucson.
Again, no changes are reflected on that. This is a project that's using federal STBG funds. With RTA local match.
Okay. Thank you. Robin, any comments on this one?
Valencia called to Houghton? Is that
no,
where?
this is Valencia I-19 to Alvernon.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it. All right.
Move my cursor there for you.
Yeah, sorry. No comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next item is 59.06 RTA 25, Valencia Road, Kolbro to Houghton Road. And again, this was the city. Jim?
Yeah, this is a project that we have not made changes to, although it does have substantial City of Tucson funding in it. I believe these are funding amounts that we had discussed with the city at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Valencia called to Houghton. I have 22, 23, 24, 25 funding amounts that seem to be the same as this. However, I did also believe that there were some Pima County impact fees associated with this stretch.
You know, you're correct on that. I'm going to have to reflect that. I did not show that there. Hang on just a second.
This is Catherine. We have a $4 million contribution owed to this project from impact fees. 3.8 million is available in fiscal year 22 and about 200,000 in fiscal year 23.
I'm sorry, could you state that again, please, Catherine?
So, 3,825,000 is available in fiscal year 22. And then the remainder, which is 175,000, should be in 23.
And I'm sorry, my fingers are fat and not flying very fast. 3 million, how much in fiscal 22?
3,825,000. So
825. Okay. All right, thank you. I've got it recorded on my spreadsheet. It's not on the screen there, but I have that, and I am noting that appropriately.
okay.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jim, moving on to tip number 32,
Okay.
RTA 30. This is 22nd Street, Camino Seco to Houghton Road.
Okay. We have done 2 actions on this. One is we have added in $3 million of City of Tucson impact fees in the final 3 years of the plan, so 23, 24, 25. We also did some moving or shifting of funding sources in the between the RTA and HERF 12R. That was for our convenience so that we could show the 12R being fully consumed. So that's really the only other difference that was made from what we had shown in the prior years. And again, this is another one of those projects that we acknowledge and understand that this has not yet been scoped or not yet been estimated, gone through the preliminary design process. So we believe that this likely will require additional funding.
Yes, agree that it will likely require additional funding.
Okay.
And that those locations for those impact fees from the City of Tucson are accurately reflected insofar as it is the same as what we reflect in our projected budget years for that project.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Okay, next item is tip number 38, RTA 31, Harrison Road, Irvington to Golf Links, and this is another city project.
No changes were made to what was reflected at the last meeting.
I just noticed something though. This is Robin. It says widened to 6-lane divided. I doubt it.
I doubt that too. I'll make sure that changes. Yeah, it will change the scope to bridge only.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the next tip ID, 46.14, RTA 32I is in Ivan, Houghton Road, Valencia Road to Marianne Cleveland Way.
Okay. On this particular project, we're reflecting the bonds that are going to be made available for it in fiscal year 22. That's really the only change to what was shown previously.
Okay, and I see these are PC bonds. Catherine, do you have any comments on this one?
No, this is the one we just recently had the IGA and TIP amendment, so we agree.
Okay, great, thank you. Robin, do you concur?
Yes, those numbers are accurate insofar as what we discussed with the county and have an IGA for. The IGA with RTA is, the amendment is not yet complete.
Okay.
If there are any things that are requiring an adjustment as a result of whatever we end up with on the IGA, those will be reflected in an administrative amendment.
Okay. Thank you for keeping me in the loop on that one. Okay.
At this
Next-
point, oh, sorry, I just thought I would also share that at this point in time, it is scheduled to be on the November 17th Mayor and Council consent agenda.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you, Rob.
Actually, Robin, I moved it up to November the 4th.
Oh, better yet. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. And we will reflect it in the December RTA board packet.
Could you remind me, please, what date the regional council is on? I could not find it on the website.
You know, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that because I don't know it off the top of my head. I think I did cite it as being the first Thursday in December and was told I was wrong. It might be the second.
Well, we'll get back to you on that one. We'll give you the proper dates.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is tip ID 1615, RTA number 32 I's and Ivan, Houghton Road, 22nd Street to Irvington.
Okay, the only thing that we changed on that is that we did show the Pima County Development Impact Fee funds. Again, this is one of those where the county has indicated that they have funding that's available, but it is subject to collection, and we parked it in fiscal 26, knowing that we'll probably end up accelerating it because the project will go forward prior to that, but you know, when the monies will be available, we're not certain. If there's you know, if the county has any more insights into that, we'd welcome it.
Catherine, are you, do you support the numbers?
But yeah, the number we have in there, 2026 is probably the earliest we'll have it, but I agree.
Okay, thank you.
This is Robin. I sort of assume with that one, if we were to need to accelerate that funding, we can do something similar to what was done with the Tangerine project.
You know, that's policy, but we'd certainly be interested in talking to you about that. Yeah.
And again, policy and this tip are so closely intertwined that it is very difficult to discuss it fully without venturing into policy land.
I understand. However, I cannot commit in this. I mean, I can show you that the money is available in the 5-year tip. I cannot. It would be inappropriate for me to commit to something that the board will do. I understand the motivations. We've been successful in working on doing these kinds of things in the past, but I don't speak for the board.
Understand, just wanted to make sure it's on the record.
Got it.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, moving on to our final one. This tip ID has not yet been assigned, but it is associated with RTA Project 32, Houghton Road, Broadway to Tanca Verde Road. Jim?
Yeah, thanks. This is a project that, again, was added at the request of the jurisdictions, and it is a phase of the Houghton Road project, so it's appropriate to be reflecting it here. It was, however, not receiving any RTA funds, as those will have been exhausted with the prior phase, unless, well, at this point, that's what's expected, is that it will be exhausted on the 22nd Street to Irvington Road phase. Should any funds remain in the Houghton project, those would then be rolled into this or be made available on this final phase. We also recognize that this is one of those projects that needs more money in order to complete, and it's appropriate for us to be reflecting it, although we don't yet have a tip ID assigned for it. The project funding that you see in there is funding that has been identified by the city of Tucson, and Pima County has some funds that they've identified for this project as well, with the same caveat that it's a bird in the bush, not in the hand. We've put that funding in fiscal 26 understanding that we need to reflect it, but that it's not presently necessarily available.
Okay.
This is Catherine. We have a portion of the impact fees that would be available immediately because those are in our existing program. That's about 1.3 million, and then the remainder we'd have to show in 2026.
Okay.
So we could split that 3.12 out.
Okay.
Okay. Would you please state those numbers again, Catherine?
If you put 1,300,000 in 2022.
Okay.
Then you could put, oops, I don't have a number in front of me either, so my math is not working. Yeah, 1,820,000 in the last year.
Okay, thank you. Jim, are we set?
As soon as my fingers finish flying here,
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm getting that. So yeah, it'll be 1,820,000 in fiscal 26. Okay. I have made the changes here on my set. Yes, that completes the roadway element projects.
Okay, thank you. I do see there's some city dollars here. Robin, would you like to comment?
Those city dollars are situated as they currently show in our projected budget for this project.
Okay. Thank you. And with that, we come to the end of our list. Crystal, could I ask you to take control back of the screen? Okay. Thank you. As we wrap up item 4, I would like to just mention quickly that Jason Bahi joined us at the beginning of this segment. So I did want to acknowledge him as a voting member of our committee today. And I wonder now if we all find this list ready to move on to the TPC for additional conversation. And
This is Jason. I'm sorry, I had issues with my Wi-Fi here. So.
Oh no, Jason, thank you for joining us. It's nice to hear your voice.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any further discussion on this item?
This is Catherine. This is a really challenging exercise. We discussed it. There's, by my notes, 25% of the named roadway projects from the RTA don't have enough money to be completed. The RTA funding is not being fully programmed. Very likely the 12.6 is going to come in far higher than our estimates in August. So we're just leaving a big hole here, and I'm not really sure what the discussion is, even what the motion would be moving forward. So I just, again, to this policy versus programming, they're so intertwined. I'm not really sure what the next step is.
And to piggyback on that, Catherine, we have the same issue with downtown links. So I'm kind of sitting here struggling as well because we're in the middle of the project. We know we need funding, yet it's not reflected in the tip. That's a bit problematic and concerning for us. So I know we talk about how things can be adjusted and all of that, but we know today that this is an issue. So I feel like we should be reflecting it in the tip.
Jamie, can I ask you to discuss this item for us? These questions?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, here we are in October and we anticipate that we'll have a final draft tip in the, March, April, May timeframe. So obviously there's a lot of work that needs to happen between now and then to refine these numbers, to have the policy discussions. And I think what we want to bring to you today is, really focus on the positioning of the dollars in the program as we have available right now. And as those policy discussions occur, and maybe more funding can be made available if it's the desire of the RTA board, then we will of course revisit where the money is programmed. So I think this is just where we are today. It's the best we can do. And I think I did hear that there was perhaps interest in a motion that would include caveats, noting some of these policy discussions. But I just wanted to share that. I also would defer to Jim and others. But that's what my understanding of the process is, where we are here in October. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment, Jamie. And while we know there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the revenue side. Fortunately, right now, it appears that things are more favorable than they had perhaps previously appeared. That said, we don't have the complete revenue side of the picture yet. And what we really probably need to do is look at, what are going to be the priority issues to deal with. We know that most of the multi-phase projects that we've identified that have funding shortages are late in the program. So we have some time to deal with that. We also recognize that there are two front burner projects that are ones that we really need to look at prioritizing, and those being the Sunset Road project of the counties and or county and cities, and the city's downtown links project. So we know that those are going to both require additional work. That said, we have an obligation to show that we're funding to the ballot level those remaining projects in the TIP, or those, at least to the ballot level, those projects. And that's what this is attempting to do, is reflect that.
Okay.
This is Catherine again. I'm curious. Let me say it another way. If we need any action on this list we're seeing, we can't actually build a significant portion of the stuff we're showing with construction dollars, which means there's a whole bunch of activity that will be needed to move those monies around to where we can actually use them and do something in this region. So spreading it thin to show that we've met some ballot amount doesn't actually create any improvement in built project for the public. So that's really my dilemma. Do we want to deliver projects, or do we just want to program projects and not be able to build anything?
And if I may, I don't know that we really need to take action today. I mean, I think that's, we have a recommended motion, but if it's something that is just not ready for action today, we can discuss internally as a staff how we'll continue to move the process forward and what makes sense in terms of the next time we bring a list forward. So again, we do have a recommended motion, but if that's just the timing isn't right, then we'll discuss this internally.
So Jamie, what is your recommended motion read like?
And well, am I mistaken? I'm sorry. I know we had one for the last meeting, but I'm not seeing it on the slide. Do we actually have, am I speaking out of turn, Carolyn and Jim?
That's okay, Jamie. We did not draft a formal recommendation. Our hope was that this project would be, this list, the numbers would be reflected properly per our request after our last meeting.
Okay. My apologies.
Yes, with the updated impact fee numbers, and that we could see that these numbers would be shown properly and ready to move on to the TPC to continue the conversation. We don't see this as an endpoint. We know that there's a lot of revenue items that are going to need to be adjusted. We see projects are going to need to move up and down depending on how the conversation goes. And so we want to make sure we continue the conversation. That's really our goal here. Next steps, move it to TPC, and hopefully have some additional real conversations at that level as well.
All right, so this is Diana. I'll put a motion on the table that we not approve the TIP as presented because it does not properly reflect projects that can be built. Someone needs to throw a second on that if they're in agreement.
This is Catherine from the county. I'll second that.
Thank you, Catherine.
So what I'd like to just clarify, are you saying we'd like to be able to move this forward to the TPC for additional conversations?
No, I'm saying that you're going to move it forward to the TPE no matter what, but I want to move it forward with the motion that this committee did not support the TIP as presented because it does not properly reflect the funding necessary for the projects as presented. So y'all are going to move it forward to the TPE no matter what. I just want it to reflect where we stand, or how I feel we stand on the way the TIP is presented. That doesn't mean the TPE is going to do something different with it or do the same thing with it. It's just from where I stand, I can't support this TIP because it doesn't properly reflect the true cost of building the projects as put in. It's just numbers on a page that we know we're not going to be able to build half of these projects. So I think the TIP really should be more reflective, and then the conversation should really be, here's what the TIP should look like with these projects coming off, and we're not presenting it that way. We're presenting a TIP with all projects, with funding program, and we know we can't build it. So that's why I made the motion the way I made it. So you got a motion, you got a second, so I think we need to do a vote, and then depending on how that falls, then we can, if it fails, then we'll have to make another motion.
So is there a discussion, Carolyn, that should take place based on the motion?
Oh, certainly by Robert's rules.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Okay, we have no discussion.
If I may, Carolyn, could you please repeat the motion? I just want to make sure I'm clear. And by the way, I'm sorry. I was looking back at we in fact do have a recommended action. So my apologies for the confusion. Sometimes we put it on the slide, and our recommended action on the agenda was to recommend approval of the draft FY22 through 26 RTA project list. So yeah, that's on.
Okay, thank you very much. But the motion currently on the table is not to accept the TIP as presented because it doesn't properly affect the funding for projects to be done. Something along that line, correct? Catherine, did I say it about right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And Catherine?
Okay, so let's have, so we do have a motion on the floor. Jamie, thank you for that clarification. Shall we move forward with the vote?
Yep.
No further discussion? Okay. Can I get a voice vote, please? Go through the list here. Okay. Mark Houghton?
Nay.
Okay. Nick Jensen?
No.
Jason Bahi?
Sorry, I couldn't find the mic button. No.
Okay. Patricia Pablo? Patricia, can you hear me okay?
Carolyn, it looks like she has left the meeting.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Keith Braun?
Nay.
Thank you. Jose Rodriguez?
Nay.
Okay. Beth Abramovitz?
No.
Okay. Thank you. So the motion on the floor has not passed.
Carolyn, I'd like to offer an alternative motion.
Yes, can I ask everyone to please mute yourselves for just a moment, please?
I'm using my speaker, so hopefully you don't get feedback.
Thank you. Beth?
I can't hear what's going on.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the list with the changes that were discussed today and agreed upon.
Okay,
If I can offer an amendment to that motion, that we add with the
Diana?
caveat. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we
sorry.
don't have a second yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Can I get a second, please?
This is Mark Hoffman. I'll second.
Thank you, Mark.
Carolyn, if I could ask for an amendment to be added to that, that we add the caveat that not all projects are properly funded.
Okay, and I'll take that as a discussion point. That the item be approved with the items that we amended today. Is that correct? Okay.
If I may, does the maker of the motion, does that person take the opportunity to consider the amendment?
Amendment, correct. Yeah, so it would be Beth and the other gentleman that would need to either accept or not.
Yeah, that would be Mark Hoffman.
Yeah, the request for the amendment, which would just be adding the caveat that not all projects are completely funded.
No,
As we discussed.
I'd like to leave the motion as I made it.
Okay. Thank you, Beth. Motion request has been denied. We move to a full voice vote.
Well, I'd like to now move to discussion. Because I would
believe-
like to understand, I'd like to know why we would not be able to add that when that was part of today's conversation. Many of the conversations that we had today actually reflected that we couldn't fund a lot of these projects. So I'm just kind of baffled as why we would not include that as an amendment. So that's part of the discussion I'd like to have to the motion.
I'm sorry, Diana, the discussion point was denied by Beth. We would now move to a full vote.
No, that's not true. You're not following Robert's rules correctly, Carolyn, with all due respect. Because there was a motion made, it was second. I made an amendment. The amendment got turned down. Now we should be open to discussion to the motion.
Okay. Jamie, I'd like to ask a clarification on that, please.
Sure. And my understanding is that after the motion has been made and seconded, there is an opportunity for discussion. And so I think that that's what has been requested. And I think that that's my understanding of the problem.
You don't accept it, you move to the vote.
So I guess with, you have a question, Ms. Alarcon, to ask the maker of the motion what you want to discuss. Is that correct?
Correct. And that is why would we not consider adding those caveats when that has been a lot of the discussion in today's presentation?
Diana, I don't think that we should be adding it because it's not our decision. Like we keep saying, it's a policy decision by the board. So we can discuss it all we want, but there's nothing we can do at our level.
Well, I think part of our responsibility is to be providing information and recommendation, because it is going to the TPE. And the TEP, I think our motion can reflect some of this when it goes to the TPE. So we're going to approve the motion as you had presented, but if we can add the caveat, then that's information that they're getting and that they have an understanding that this is something that needs to be part of the policy direction. If we don't provide it, then they may not ever know.
And this is Robin, if I may add just a little bit that we need to have some real clarity that we are approving funding sources and their availability, but we are not saying with any clarity that these projects can actually be built. Most of them, in fact, cannot be built with the funding that is currently shown in the TIP. And I think that should be out in the open, or we're not doing our jobs.
Okay.
If I may,
Robin, thank you for your comment. I just want to mention that Diana has made the motion. And so we need to have one voice from each jurisdiction. I'm sorry.
this is
Beth, how would you like to proceed with your motion?
There's a motion on the floor, so I'd like to proceed with the motion as proposed.
Is this still open for discussion? This is Catherine from the county. I'm wondering if it's still open for discussion right now.
I understand that the motion is no longer up for discussion and Beth has moved it forward.
Yeah, but you can't close the discussion until everything their 2 cents in. You can call it, but if people still have stuff to discuss by Robert's rule, it should stay open. It's when you can't, and so Catherine hasn't had a chance to speak. So if she wants to and open up the discussion, I mean, my answer was addressed, so I'm good. I may not agree with it, but I'm good. But if Catherine has something to still discuss, she should have the option to discuss it. You shouldn't be closing it. That's not following Robert's rules correctly.
Okay, thank you, Diana.
One of the key steps that we've taken for the past 10 years when we're programming the TIP is that no project should be in the TIP that is not adequately funded to move forward and progress. What the list that we put together does not follow that, and that's historically how we've always considered this document.
All right, so thank you for those comments, Ms. Skinner and Carolyn. Is there any more discussion? I think we haven't closed discussion yet.
This is Keith from Marana. Can I speak, please?
Yes. Carolyn, is that okay?
Yes.
I agree 100% with what Catherine just said. We typically do not put projects forward if we don't have a game plan of how they're 100% funded. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If that's okay with you, Ken. Yes, Jose.
Yes, I agree with Catherine and Keith, but it's actually the first 2 years that we're focused that it's got to be fully funded before it can. A project needs to be fully funded before it moves into the first 2 years. The out years, it's very dynamic. They would come back with in the next TIP cycle and add more projects, more funding to the projects as funding becomes available. But yeah, the first 2 years are critical that the projects have all the funding ready to move forward.
And in the list that we've been discussing, there are a number of projects in the first 2 years that are not completely funded.
Correct. And the TIP is still, no matter what, reflective of 5 years, not 2 years.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor?
This is Scott Robidoux at Tucson Airport Authority. Is there a reason, from what I'm gathering, why some of these projects are moving forward with insufficient funding? Would the intention be to amend the TIP after the fact when the projects are coming up, or is there another funding source I'm just not seeing that's not available yet?
Jamie, can you respond to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Robidoux. Yeah, my understanding is that for the first 2 years of the TIP, it has to represent, committed funding and, ready for full implementation. With regard to additional funds that may be considered and added to those projects in those first 2 years of the TIP, I think I'd like to see if Mr. DeGroot has any comments. I know we've talked again about this, pretty early in the process, and that we're going to be taking these lists through multiple round review. And so by taking action today, by having this discussion today, it does not lock in these projects in an adopted TIP. That will not take place until April, May timeframe. And at that point, we need to make sure we're in full compliance with the federal regulations. So I think it's really important to keep in mind we were going to have a compliant tip that's adopted in April, May timeframe. So we're right now having these preliminary planning conversations to move these lists forward. But in terms of adding additional funding to projects, Mr. Diggory, do you have any comments?
You know, I think, if I may, this is being characterized as a draft project list. This is not the final tip. The final tip has to go through more processes. So, it is our intention to resolve these issues, at least as relates to the projects that are in the first several years of the tip before we get to the tip that gets presented to the regional council and RTA board in next May. So we know there's a lot of steps in there. Regardless of how this vote turns out, we're going to have a very robust discussion about what still needs to be done as we move forward through the TPC and other committee measures. And you're going to be on this for a while. So from my standpoint, and I think as Jamie had indicated at the outset, it's not all that important to us that we even have an up or down vote at this point. What we need to do is we need to keep moving on this, and we want to make sure that as we are reflecting this in the plan, this is the best information that we've got at this point. We know that there's going to need to be additional work done. We're not shying away from it. We're not trying to do anything other than identify those things that we can control and correctly identify or correctly represent them to the best extent we can at this time.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Robideau?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Hey, Jamie, I have a question, Diana.
Sorry, this is it, and I have something that might fix this. I'd like to amend my motion to include a note that the projects are funded to the ballot amount, but that additional funding may be required to complete the projects. Is that acceptable to the second?
Mark, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here. That would be fine. I agree.
Okay, discussion.
Carolyn, can you repeat the motion?
Yes, amend the motion to state that the ballot amounts will be fully funded.
But that additional funding may be required to complete the projects.
Thank you. But that additional funding may be required to complete the projects.
Beth, would you be open to considering that additional funding is required to finish the projects? I think that might be more accurate.
That's fine, Catherine. Is it fine with Mark?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? Moving through voice vote. Mike Jensen,
Yes.
Jason Bahi,
Yes.
Catherine Skinner,
Yes.
Patricia Pablo.
Yes.
Thank you and welcome back. Keith Braun,
Yes.
thank you. Jose Rodriguez,
Yes.
thank you. And with that, the motion passes.
Doesn't the city of Tucson get a vote?
Oh, I'm sorry, you do. I skipped over Robin. I guess in this place, it would be your
No,
vote.
no, Robin can vote. That's fine. I just want to make sure the city of Tucson has a vote.
Yes, so I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
And I
Robin,
vote
would you-
yes too, Carolyn.
I got you, yes. So,
Oh, yeah,
Mark?
that big motion. We need her vote.
Okay, so for clarification, Beth and Mark made the motion. We, she voted yes. Mark Hoffman? Are you still?
Yes.
Yes, and then the final is for the city of Tucson?
Does the Tucson Airport Authority vote as well, or do we just observe?
At this point, you're ex officio members?
Okay.
Thank you. So city of Tucson? Robin, would you
Robin?
like to vote or have Diana make the vote in your stead?
You had recently stated that I was not allowed to be part of the discussion, so I think perhaps you need to decide who you're about.
Okay, Diana, would you please vote?
No.
No for the city. Motion passes. We'll move the items as noted up to the TPC for further discussion. And with that, I believe we can call adjournment.
Yeah, and if I may, I know we are at adjournment. There was a question, I think it was important early on. This is Jamie, sorry. There was a question about the date of the next Regional Council and RTA board meeting. I wanted to just provide that information, we've got everybody. It is Thursday, December 10th at noon. So Ms. Rain, I think you had a question about that. I hope that answers your question.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jamie, this is Diana. I got a quick question. I had to step away and take a phone call from the city manager, but Robin just made the comment that she wasn't allowed to make comments. Can I ask when and why and that occurred? I must have missed that. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Let me just clarify, because this is a voting body, we need to have one representative with the vote. And since you entered the conversation with the lead and made the motion on the floor,
Okay,
I
thank you.
just wanted to clarify who had the final voice from the city of Tucson.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm sorry. My misunderstanding.
But yeah, it wasn't intended to be, was not my intention to offend Robin in any way. I just wanted to clarify we needed just one vote from each jurisdiction.
No, and that makes perfect sense, Carolyn. So Robin and I will be better coordinated the next time. So thank you for that clarity. I appreciate it. We
Yeah,
don't
thank
mean
you.
to create confusion either.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Everybody
with
have a
that,
great
any
day.
other- Thanks, bye-bye.
Bye.
We are adjourned, 10:38.